On today's episode of Locked On Angels, it's Fan Mail Friday, and you asked, should we stand and cheer for Anthony Rendon at the home opener? Who's the ace of this staff? Really? And who's out of the pen when Robert Stevenson comes back? Let's talk about it. It's time to get locked on with Mike and John, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. You can find us anywhere you get your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SiriusXM by searching Locked On Angels. And if you'd like to get back to the Super Halo Bros for all the Super Halo content, here's some things that you can do. Leave us a rate and a review on Apple Podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button. And if you're not subscribed already, please subscribe and become a Locked On Everydayer. And whether you're watching or listening, come over to YouTube, leave a comment. It's one of the best ways to get in touch with us and be a part of the conversation. And today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Jonathan, go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use our code, all lowercase, LockedOnMLB for a first deposit match of up to $100.
Happy Friday to you, and thanks for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the Frisch Brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Mike, it's our third season here at Locked On Angels. We're talking Angels baseball Monday through Friday, every single weekday, the number one daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Listen, we're here 5 days a week for you, and we're answering your questions every Friday on Fan Mail Friday. So we appreciate everybody who submitted some questions for this week's edition, the first in-season Fan Mail Friday, by the way. And so we're going to get right to those right now. Mike, why don't you start us out with our first question of the day?
Yeah, Gloria Estefan said, "Get on your feet." And so let's talk about that. There's this.
Are you sure that was the right singer and song? Because yesterday you said Pink Floyd. You meant Dire Straits. And that's the only thing people took away from the episode. So I'm glad we put all that work in. Yeah.
It was all good. Hey, listen, there's this graphic being spread on social media about standing ovation for Anthony Rendon, tonight's game, when he has his first at bat. So there's some questions about that. So depressed Angel fan, I feel you, buddy. What's your opinion on giving Rendon a standing ovation in his first at bat at the home opener on Friday? I'm all for it. Can't wait for the home opener. King Nick 24 on Instagram said, "Are we cheering or booing Rendon?" It was in all caps, so I needed to express that.
Yeah,
and
good
then
job.
Jossman82 on Instagram said, "So what do you think about the standing ovation for Rendon?" So Johnny, what do you think?
Hey, we've talked about this before, and somebody submitted this a few weeks ago for Fan Mail Friday. And the fact is, I said it's a really hard sell, and because Anthony Rendon is no Trea Turner, especially after everything that Rendon has said. Having said that, can it hurt? No, I don't think it can hurt. And look, am I going to boo my own player? No. Do I think that he's working really hard? Well, the evidence is there from this spring training, working with Ron Washington and being out there and doing his thing. But here's where I think people get it twisted, Mike. It's that they say, well, Anthony Rendon doesn't care. He said he doesn't care. And he shows it with his play. I go, no, he said his priorities were his faith, his family, and then baseball. That's different than not caring. Plus, I know he's in a slump. He's 0 for 19 at this point.
Right.
And so everyone decided that means he doesn't care. That no, people go through slump. Did Trout not care when he was going through his slump last year? I mean, I just think it's silly to be a body language expert and go, he doesn't care. So I'm never going to be that on this show. So if you're going to the home opener and you're going to stand up for Rendon during that first thing, it certainly can't hurt, and I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal if you decide to do that. Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that if they do give him a standing ovation, the tension is going to be this. Don't expect him to become Trea Turner after the standing ovation.
Sure.
Right? Trea Turner wept openly, right? And then suddenly became Trea Turner again, which was fantastic. I just think that the hope is that he would perform because we're kind of giving him a shot of adrenaline. The reality is that Rendon is going to Rendon, and he's going to be who he is. I do think that he will be on an uptick. So they're going to be Angel fans. They're going to go, see, all we needed to do is stand up and give him a standing ovation, because the odds of him continuing to go over are pretty low, right? Like, he's going to get a hit sooner or later. He'll probably, and I'll even say this, book it, John. He'll hit a home run this weekend. So I think he'll hit a home run this weekend, and I think that he'll show that he's improving and that the odds are moving in his direction. The only thing that I would just caution on is just don't expect him to be Trea Turner after all of this.
Right.
And here's the funny thing about Rendon, John. When I'm at the game and they're announcing the players, like I'm cheering, fist pumping for certain players, and then other players, there's an applaud. With Rendon, isn't it true that you look at the people around you and you go, oh, okay, yeah, okay, yeah, we can like.
Are we allowed? Yeah.
So I think that if there is a major majority of people standing to their feet when he comes to the plate, it'll be acknowledged, it'll be recognized. I do think it's a kind gesture, a tip of the cap, and so I think that that's what fans are trying to do. I don't think that they're trying to, do anything other than that. And so if that's the case, like, hey, let's acknowledge the human and say, hey, man, we appreciate you. I know it's been tough. Let's have a good year.
Yeah.
That would be, I think, a really kind gesture from Angel fans.
It's just funny because I've seen the response to people standing up. Our friend Angel's Top Plays has put it out there.
Yeah.
Really Sports has put it out there. But a lot of the comments, it's as if Rendon personally offended some Angel fans or like took money from them or like
he's not a murderer. He hasn't killed anybody, right? I mean, he probably killed our spirits, but he hasn't killed anybody. And I get that on the top 10 Angels list of favorite players, he's 15. I get that, right? Like he's not everybody's favorite, and so I appreciate the gesture. And our buddy James Russell Barton on Instagram said, "Hey, hot take: Rendon has been having great at bats and hitting the ball really hard this year," which is true, right?
Yeah. James, I'm with you. And I know a lot of people are upset about the way Rendon has started the season, but I did the research because I felt the same way. And here's what the numbers say here, Mike.
So hold on.
I'm sorry.
This is factual evidence. This is not bias. This is not hopium. This is not positive. This is factual evidence of what is happening. Johnny, continue.
Man, we're free. We're free and easy on Fridays, Mike. I love it. Yeah, per Baseball Reference, Rendon is tied for 18th in the league in pitches per at-bat. So he is seeing 4.38 pitches per AB. You know who's number one in the league, by the way, Mike, as of this recording? Logan O'Hoppe. He's seeing really 4.95 pitches per at-bat in the league. So he has seen the most. He's not tied. That's how many he's seen per at-bat. Also, Mike, Rendon has seen, or he's 19th in the league, 85% contact rate so far.
Wow.
So he's making contact with the ball. Now, per Baseball Savant, these are some more numbers here. Keep in mind, this is across 20 plate appearances so far. Rendon's expected slugging percentage on fastballs this year, 456. Last year, it was 476. So if you hooked him up to the machine and you analyzed and studied his swing and all that stuff, and it showed you the swing path and the speed and the direction, he's doing pretty much the same thing he did last year on fastballs in terms of the expected numbers. If we want to break it down even further, listen to this. Four-seam fastballs, he's seen 35 four-seam fastballs. He's got an expected batting average of 226, which makes sense considering nothing's really landed, but the way he's hitting the ball says that he should have an expected slugging percentage of 512. Remember, a 500 slugging is great, and on this particular four-seam fastball pitch, he should be hitting 512. The expected weighted on-base average, or WOBA, we're all familiar with, he's got a xWOBA of 364 on four-seam fastballs, where 400 WOBA is considered great, according to FanGraphs. Now, against sinkers, he's only seen 9 sinkers. He's got a 253 expected batting average, a 577 expected slugging, and a 344 expected WOBA. So the way this breaks down, Mike, is yes, Rendon, who traditionally hits fastballs well, is having good at bats. He's hitting the ball well, according to the expected numbers. They just haven't landed for hits yet. He's hit them right at people. He's hit stuff to the wall. He's also working counts. And I think that's important because it shows guys that are hitting behind Rendon a pitcher's repertoire really early. I will go back and I will beat this drum. The fact that Mike Trout got a home run on Corbin Burns in the first game off a slider Probably because he was watching Rendon's at bat and Hicks's at bat and saw the slider in those ABs and knew what to look for. Now, that is me theorizing and hypothetical, but that's what hitters do. They watch the at bats before them. They watch where pitchers are throwing stuff, and that's exactly what Rendon is doing. He's not walking enough, and so that's something he typically does a lot better. But Mike, I just said, he's seen 35 four-seam fastballs. He's seen 9 sinkers. You know why that number's so low? Because he's had 20 plate appearances.
Yeah.
So let's not freak out about 20 plate appearances when a sample size is usually like 600 plate appearances.
Yeah.
So I think that we all need to cool our jets and just know, like you said, whether they stand up for him or not, he's going to come around. And I think it's just a matter of time, and perhaps getting home and being at Angel Stadium is going to be helpful with that. But again, I think that it's just a matter of time before Rendon comes around, and we're not going to tell anybody how to fan. So if you want to stand up, I think that's great. If you don't want to, that's great too. I think just go and have a good time at the game. If you don't want to go to the game because you don't want to support Artie, that's your prerogative too. So we're not going to tell you how to fan on Locked On Angels, right?
Yeah. And the good news is that the Angels are 4-2, and they had a really good offensive output against the Marlins, struggled against the Orioles, but that Sunday game was a good indicator as to how they could play against really good teams. And Rendon hasn't really done much in those games. And so if he can start doing something, and if he's going to continue to lead off, it's only going to benefit this offense. And so the key for him this weekend is to continue to take the pitches that he's taking, and then maybe some of them will start to fall in, because the expected numbers say that if they fell in, he'd be looking really good right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen every single day. The Angels are playing the Red Sox tonight at the home opener, 6:38 Pacific time. You can catch every pitch of the Angels hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search Angels. Coming up on Locked On Angels, we're getting into some of your roster questions. And does Ron Washington have the ability to turn this franchise around this season? We're going to talk about all of that coming right up.
Locked On Angels is brought to you by Factor Meals. Eat stress-free this spring with Factor's delicious, ready-to-eat meals. Every fresh, never frozen meal is chef-crafted, dietitian-approved, and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. Choose from a weekly menu of 35 options, including popular options like Calorie Smart, Keto, Protein Plus, or vegan and veggie. Also, you can discover more than 60 add-ons every single week, like breakfast and on-the-go lunch and snacks and beverages to help you stay fueled and feel good all day long. So what are you waiting for? Get started today and fill up your springtime goals with Factor Meals. Factor is your solution for fast, premium meals without the need for cooking. So head to factormeals.com/LockedOnMLB50 and use our code LockedOnMLB50 to get 50% off your first box, plus Johnny, 20% off your next box. That's promo code LockedOnMLB50 at factormeals.com/LockedOnMLB50. You'll get 50% off your first box, plus 20% off your next box while your subscription is still active.
And today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Prize Picks. It's the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America, and they're the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports, whether it's tournament season, down to the Final Four, baby, or the fight for playoffs on your home court. There's no shortage of high-stakes basketball moments this time of year. Get in on the excitement with Prize Picks and turn your hoops knowledge into some serious cash. You can win now, and you can win up to 100 times your money with as little as 4 correct picks. That's right. You can turn $10 into $1,000. And it's not just limited to NBA. It could be college basketball or even NHL as well when you make your entries today. Instead of betting on thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you can play against the numbers. And here's how. You can pick between 2 and 6 players and decide if that player will produce more than or less than the projected stat. If you get it right, you can watch the winnings roll in. So download the app today and enter code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match of up to $100. Again, that's LOCKEDONMLB, all one word, all lowercase, and you can get a first deposit match of up to $100. You can join Prize Picks today. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. This is the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. And thank you for making Locked On Angels your first listen every single day. Every day, it's time to make the switch from your regular sports viewing to Locked On Sports Today. We've been talking about it for a while, and in case you haven't checked it out yet, it's a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories in sports. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news. It's streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV Channels app. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
The Angels play the Red Sox tonight, 6:38 Pacific time, and you can catch every pitch of the Angels' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search Angels, and we continue with Fan Mail Friday. Johnny, Chase Filtheth, I'm not lisping, Chase Filtheth on Twitter asked this question. Guy. Who is our ace of the squad after the first time through the rotation, and why is it Chase Silseth? I love that. So who's our ace, Johnny? Who do you think?
Mike, I'm going with Anderson. Seven scoreless innings is exactly what you want from an ace. It's what we used to expect from Jared Weaver. 7 innings, less than 2 earned runs, right? And so for me, this week, according to the first time through the rotation, if we go purely based on the results, I'm going Tyler Anderson. Now, I don't think that he truly is an ace, but if I'm going based on how this first week went, I can't ask for better than 7 innings pitched, no earned runs. What about you?
Right. I'm going to go with Reed Detmers because I think that he is an actual ace. I think that he will prove that this year. And I didn't want to say the same thing as you. So I'm going to go with Reed Detmers as the ace of the staff.
Mike, a couple questions here about the bullpen. Pip on Twitter said, which bullpen arm goes when Robert Stevenson is healthy? And then Mrs. K. Holstein on Instagram said, when it's time to switch out Garcia from the bullpen, who do they bring up? Strickland, Joyce, Plesac, or Mike, what do you say?
I think Zuniga is probably going to be the one that is the candidate that will be out of the bullpen once Stevenson comes back because he does have options. And that's the thing that we haven't really had with this Angel team in the last couple of years. So he does have options. I do think that Garcia is going to stay because they did give him almost $4.5 million this year and maybe going to move him to lower leverage situations. He can be kind of a fill guy. If your starter goes 5, then he can be in the 6th inning. It seems like those high leverage situations have not been kind to him.
Right.
I know that he had a save, but he did give up a home run in that game. So there may be some more innings that he needs to put out, but quite honestly, I think that you need to maybe move him out of those high leverage situations and maybe more of a gap guy. He's helping connect the starter to the bullpen.
Yeah. And I'd say Strickland would be my guess if he's going to come up if the Angels need another arm. But so far, I think with Stevenson coming back soon, I think Zuniga, like you said, would be the odd man out. Eric Zoll on Twitter said, do you guys think this is finally the year where we get to see what Joe Adell can do, especially with Trout at DH more and days where we face a lefty? Mike, what do you think about Joe Adell?
Joe Adell's splits against lefties are still a bit up in the air, right? Like they're still not great. And if he has a new approach at the plate, then I think that he needs to see both righties and lefties so he can continue to develop. But I think this is the year for him to get more time, Johnny, because I want to see him out there. I know that you do as well, because when he gets on base, there seems to be a whole lot of energy and chaos.
Yeah.
And he's getting to second. He's stealing bags. He's hit a triple already. And so, and what I also like, and I know that it was in games where we were out of it, but he's come up offensively late in the games and he's come through. And that's what you need from somebody who, like a Joe Adell, who is going to be in your outfield. So I'd love to see him get some more shots and be out there a whole lot more often.
Wiper Andrew on Instagram said, why does Ron Washington not play Luis Rengifo? Is it injury related? Well, actually, I think, Andrew, it's more circumstantial than anything else. A couple things. Wash, when they started the season, he used the lineup that was doing really well at the end of spring training for those first 2 games, and Rengifo wasn't in those lineups. However, the Angels have also faced 4 righties to start the year when they played the Orioles and then their first game against the Marlins. And Rengifo is honestly best against lefties. I don't think he started against Luzardo because Hicks and Sano have better numbers against lefties who throw 96 mile an hour plus. And Rengifo actually struggles against high velocity lefties. So if they're throwing a really hard fastball, even though he's good against lefties, he struggled against high velo lefties. Now he did start on Wednesday because AJ Puck has been averaging like 93 on his fastball as a starter. Now in the past as a reliever, Puck's been up near like 96, but I think he probably took a few ticks off of his fastball. I think I even heard Gooby say that Puck wasn't sitting as high as he normally does, probably because that way he can have some longevity as a starter instead of, using his arm up with a really hard fastball. Mike, how about this one? MLB fan on Twitter says, "Hey guys, love the show. Thank you. Who's impressed you the most and the least impressive? And do you have a breakout player this year?" Mike, who's impressed? Who's kind of stinking it up in your opinion?
I'm going to say Tyler Anderson, John. Tyler Anderson was really impressive in his first start, and Logan O'Hoppe. Both of those guys have really caught my attention, especially with the stat that you shared in the first segment that O'Hoppe's leading the league in pitches seen.
Yeah.
And I think that might be why he's got such a high batting average, because he's getting his pitch, and that's what the Angels want the hitters to do. Johnny Washington has been preaching that. And so I love that about Logan O'Hoppe. Not impressed and really frustrated. I'm going to steal yours because I know you're going to talk about it, but Luis Garcia, I'm bummed, right? I'm bummed because he seems to be the 2019 Luis Garcia, and I don't want that. I don't want that at all. I want somebody who's going to help this bullpen. And so he's kind of been a disappointment so far for me.
Taylor Ward has impressed the most for me. I think everybody knows I kind of had my doubts about him at cleanup. Mike, I think you actually put him at cleanup in your projected lineup.
I did.
Based on the numbers last year. And so I think he's carrying that into this season. I think he's doing really well. We got another question here, Mike. You want to read that one?
Yeah. So Doc Brock 78 on Twitter asked, do you like Hicks and Sano taking time away from the young guys? The short answer is no, but there is a better answer. John, why don't you share the better answer?
Yeah, I think, honestly, I understand the sentiment here. I think I would have liked to have seen Mickey Moniak in more against the righties, especially to start the season. I think they're finding out based on the last two games where the Angels face lefties that Hicks should be a lefty platoon so that he hits right-handed against lefty pitchers, because he did not have a lot of success as a lefty versus right-handed pitching. And that's the perfect spot for Mickey Moniak. I also, again, went with that lineup that was winning games at the end of spring training. Now, having said that, Sano, I thought would have been more of a bench piece and not starting as much as he has done. But I also think that he too is thriving against left-handed pitching. So again, you might see more platoons, more splits. I also appreciate that Ron Washington has made some adjustments to the lineup since opening day. Remember, he staunchly said, I'm not going to be changing my lineup all the time. Well, he's changed it pretty much every day. I think the first 2 days were the same. We probably would have seen Moniak more to start this year, but he did get sick last Sunday. They were going to put him in there against Tyler Wells. So that's why Joe Adell played. But again, 6 games in, I think we're going to start to see more platoons, more matchups. And right now, Ron Washington is finding out that Hicks and Sano might just be good options when there's a lefty starter on the mound. And then you can roll with guys like Moniak and Adell when those splits are different in those upcoming games.
Locked On Angels is brought to you by Robinhood, not the person, but the organization. Did you know that even if you have a 401k for retirement, you can still have an IRA? Robinhood has the only IRA that gives you a 3% boost on every dollar you contribute when you subscribe to Robinhood Gold. But get this, now through April 30th, Robinhood is even boosting every single dollar you transfer in from another retirement account with a 3% match. That's right. No cap on the 3% match. Robinhood Gold gets you the most for your retirement thanks to their IRA with their 3% match. This offer is good through April 30th, and you can get started at robinhood.com/boost. And there are some subscription fees that apply there. And here's some legal jargon just for you. Claim as of Q1 2014, validated by Radius Global Market Research. Investing involves risk and loss. Limitations apply to IRAs and 401ks. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold for 1 year from the date of the first 3% match. Must keep Robinhood IRA for 5 years. The 3% matching on transfers is subject to specific terms and conditions. Robinhood IRA available to U.S. customers in good standing, and Robinhood Financial LLC, member IPC is a registered broker-dealer.
Mike, let's get into our last few questions here for this edition of Fan Mail Friday. Road Soda on Instagram, by the way, he's the one who made that meme that said, the world, if everyone called them the Baltimore Orioles, just trying to save time.
Nice.
That we posted on Instagram and Twitter. It was so funny. He said, not a question. I just miss Walsh. He's tearing it up. He just needed good coaching. What a surprise. Mike, tell us a little bit about Walshy.
Yeah, Walshy this season, John, 6 games, 22 plate appearances, 6 runs, 8 hits, 2 doubles, 1 home run, 3 RBIs, 1 walk, 7 Ks. Listen to the slash line in 3 games, 22 plate appearances, 381, 409 on base, 619 slugging, and a 1.028 OPS.
Woo!
Does it feel like the Angels gave up a little bit too quickly on Walsh? It didn't feel like this was an ability issue. It was more maybe just, I'm going to really recover from the injuries and the headaches and the COVID and all the mess that he was dealing with.
Yeah, I think the rope was a little short on Walsh. I don't think they should have let him go. I think maybe you keep him in the minors to see how things are going to go. I don't even think it was a coaching issue. I think it was purely the eye issues that he was having and all of that stuff, neurological stuff. That's what the word I'm looking for. And I feel like they could have held on to him at least for another year in the minor leagues or what have you, rather than let him go. Sad Angels fan on Twitter says, do y'all think we'll be buyers or spenders at the deadline, trading guys like Ward or Roenicke? Well, if the Angels are going to be buyers, I think that's still TBD. If I had to guess what they're going to buy at the deadline, it's going to be starting pitching. And the Marlins, they just got that devastating news about Yuri Perez, who's going to have Tommy John. But Mike, if their season continues the way that it's going, I'm sure they're going to be sellers at the deadline. But here's some things that everybody should know. Ward is a free agent after 2026. Roenicke is a free agent after 2025. So they actually have some time left with the Angels if they decide not to trade them. Now, obviously, that adds more value if they have more years on their contract. But I think the more likely trade candidates are going to be those 1-year deals that the Angels have right now. Carlos Estevez is on an expiring deal. Matt Moore, Luis Garcia, Adam Simber, Jose Cisnero, Brandon Drury is on an expiring deal. Aaron Hicks. The Royals got Cole Reagans. You heard of him yet? Because he's tearing it up for the Royals. They got him from the Rangers for Aroldis Chapman last year. The Rangers, of course, went on to win the World Series. Reagans was a reliever for the Rangers, wasn't working out. As soon as he went to the Royals, they started him, and now he might be one of the best young pitchers in baseball right now. So maybe if the Angels can trade away some of those guys, they might get a Chapman for Reagans kind of deal at the deadline. So we'll see what happens once the Halos get to the deadline.
Can you imagine if they flipped Aaron Hicks for like a young
for anything?
Jared Weaver? Like, right? I mean, that'd be fantastic. Johnny Burner Boy on Twitter asked, do you guys think that this 3-game series will reflect how the Halos play when they start playing Oakland and other bad to average teams, or is it too early to say? What do you think?
I think, with those bad teams, you got to take 2 out of 3 or 3 out of 3 and make that your expectation every single time. But the problem is, we saw it on Monday. The Angels were able to overcome that 4-0 deficit after Chase Silseth really struggled in the first inning. And they just can't do that, Mike. And we talked about this yesterday as we previewed the Boston series. They can't give away the game in the first inning. Now, whether they do that against struggle or better teams, that is TBD. But I think this Boston Red Sox series is going to be a good test for what kind of team the Angels can be. Truth is, Boston's played the A's and they've played the Mariners, and the Mariners lineup hasn't been that great. Their pitching is phenomenal. And then they play the A's. So we've kind of played the better teams out of the 4 teams between the Red Sox and the Angels. They've kind of played similar teams, but I think the Angels had it tougher with the Orioles. Mike, it's .ym on Instagram says, does Ron Washington see WBC Sandoval and believe that he can be that consistently? What do you think?
I think Ron doesn't evaluate based upon what happened. I think he evaluates based on what's happening right in front of him. And I think that Ron really knows maybe how to push the buttons for Sandoval. And whatever happened between calling him the opening day starter, that start versus his second start, I think that there's been some good work that has taken place. And Ron seems to be a guy who can acknowledge, like, this guy needs me to kick him in the butt. This guy needs some coaching. This guy needs to get out on the field. And so I think that he evaluates Sandoval just based upon what's happening right in front of him, and maybe doesn't use the past as an indicator as to what will happen in the present.
Definitely. Tiger Jones 234 on Instagram said, do you guys think Wash can turn things around and get us to the playoffs. I mean, yes, I think that he absolutely is the guy to do it. And now it just comes down to the talent on the field. I will not question the coaching staff this year because they all seem like experienced veteran leaders.
Yeah.
And I know that Barry Enright was assistant pitching coach. It's his first year as the head pitching coach, but truth is he learned under Brent Strom, and he has what better mentorship than that. Again, I think it just comes down to talent this season. Can these guys rise to the occasion? I think I'm through with, well, Matt Wise wasn't very good and Phil Nevin didn't do this. I'm kind of through with those excuses because I feel like the coaching staff is competent. And,
agreed.
I might disagree with Ron Washington on like lineup construction, or maybe if he makes a bad bullpen decision. I haven't seen that yet. Maybe the Griffin Canning thing was kind of iffy when he let him go back out for the 6th inning, but I didn't think that Canning would blow up in that 6th inning.
And he didn't blow up. He would go back out.
Yeah, he put 2 people on, but at the end of the day, that's baseball, So that's kind of how I feel about the whole thing.
Yeah. Aguiles Anthony on 12 on Instagram said, not a question, but a hot take. The Angels not signing a starting pitcher was actually a good thing and will give the young starters a chance to prove themselves. I like that hot take. I think if the Angels came out and said that right off the bat, that's what they wanted to do, I think Angel fans would be more it'd be more palatable for them, right? Instead of like having this hope of we're going to be aggressive and we're going to try to win, and then there was this assumption it was going to be that you're going to sign a bunch of guys instead of going with your young guys.
I just realized this guy's username. I was going to say Keon Paris, but I think it's supposed to be Kion Paris, like Kyron Paris. Nice. On Twitter said, as someone who watches both wrestling and MLB, with wrestling feeling like it's on a slight uptick, what can MLB do to better compete against the giant that is the NFL? Competition, honestly, like the fact that WWE and AEW are both out there, WWE would still be doing their stinky storylines if they didn't have some serious competition and a place where their talent pool could go. So when I think about MLB, not that there would be a competitor to MLB, but they have to treat the world that they're in as if they're playing against themselves, if that makes sense. I also think, Mike, it's just a availability of the product, like just not being available with blackouts and whatnot. It's just so ridiculous. And the fact is, NFL's once a week, so every game feels super important. Don't get me wrong, I love 162 games because there's baseball on nearly every single day, but that oversaturates things a little bit. Also, you got to highlight your superstars. You can't ask every 5 minutes when Trout is going to ask for a trade. That's right. Like, let's just celebrate what he's doing rather than trying to take away from that.
Yeah. Danny Whosoever on Instagram asked, when are you guys going to any games? Well, we're actually going to Star Wars night. They're having like a drone Star Wars night. The drone show. That's going to be so exciting. So John and his wife and me and my wife and our kids are all going to that game. So we'll be there. So look for us. We're going to be in right field. So look for us when we're there.
Beautiful. Friday the 26th, we'll be there for the drone show. I'm excited about the drone show.
Gonna be great. Gonna be so good. Hey, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. The Angels play the Red Sox today, 6:38 Pacific time, and you can catch every pitch of the Angels' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search Angels.
Hey, give us a follow at Locked On Angels on Twitter and at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram. Whether you're watching or listening to today's show, come on over to YouTube, find today's episode, get in the comment section. It's the best way to interact with Mike and I and be part of the conversation. Mike, what do we have on deck for Monday's show?
We're going to recap all 3 games from this weekend against the Red Sox, so be here on Monday for all the details, the who, what, when, where, and why on Locked On Angels.
Looking forward to that. We hope you have a great weekend. Until then, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Thanks for being here, everybody. Thank you for your questions, and we'll see you back here on Monday.
We had a win in the house. My youngest got her permit today.
Hey, she's driving you to the game next week.
Oh, no.